Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. So today I am back to do a video that was partially inspired by Roisin over at Roisin's Reading, as well as Shelley Swearingen, to do with the topic of, do I actually have favourite authors? Had you asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said no to that question, because I've always generally thought that I'm not really an author girl. I'm not interested in an author because of their particular writing style. I am much more focused on characters and also the premise of a book. So it wouldn't matter if an author that I had previously loved the work from wrote something new, if I wasn't interested in the premise of the book itself. That has been true throughout most of my life. That being said, when it comes to my childhood reading, there have definitely been exceptions to that. I would read almost any Jacqueline Wilson I could get my hands on, as well as Roald Dahl, but I've also not been a completionist with either of those authors, because if I looked at the plot of one of those books and thought, actually no, that doesn't appeal to me, I'm not just going to read it for the sake of reading it, for the sake of saying that I've read all of Jacqueline Wilson or I've read all of Roald Dahl. But over the past couple of years, I've gotten more into romance books, and I do tend to come back to my favourite authors. And I also think just generally I'm getting a little bit less adventurous with my reading taste. I often go to books for comfort, and one of the ways that I know that a book is going to bring me comfort is if I feel safe with the author. And so yeah, I thought, as I say, inspired by Roisin, her video on her favourite authors, as well as Shelley Swearingen, where she went through a very similar process to the one that I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through the different authors that I've read multiple books by, and for them to qualify as a favourite author, I have to have read at least 3 books by them, and they have to be books that I have deemed very, very good. And for me, that is going to be, they have to have at least hit 4 stars with each of those 3 books. I can have read more books by then that ranked a bit lower, but at least 3 of them have to have been 4 to 5 stars. My other little caveat that I don't think Shelley did is that if all of those books are from the same series, then it doesn't count as a favourite author, because I suspect that what I'm actually liking is not the author's writing style, but maybe just that series itself. And I don't feel safe in saying that this is a favourite author if I've only ever read 1 series by them. So with those qualifications out the way, let's just get into those authors and those books. The first author that pops up when I'm scrolling through Goodreads is Julia Quinn, of whom I have read 4 books by and DNF'd 1. The ones I've read are the first 4 in the Bridgerton series, of which 2 of them ranked at a 5-star, 1 ranked at a 3, 1 at a 3.5. So that doesn't count for 3 books ranking 4 to 5 stars, but even if it had, they're all from the same series. I don't think that Julia Quinn can count. Next up is Elizabeth Gaskell, of which I have read 6 works by: North and South, Wives and Daughters, Cranford, Ruth, Cousin Phyllis, and The Old Nurse's Tale. And only North and South and Wives and Daughters have ranked as a 5-star, and everything else has been like 3.5 or below, which I was really surprised by. I thought for sure that Elizabeth Gaskell would count as a favourite author. I'm not done with Elizabeth Gaskell though, and I do think that Mary Barton might be the next best bet for this author reaching favourite author status, so all to play for. Next we have Markus Zusak, of whom I have read The Book Thief, which I loved. It's one of my favourite books of all time. I Am the Messenger, which was a 4-star read, but then I ended up DNFing his most recent work, Bridge of Clay, so unfortunately Markus Zusak, not a favourite author. One that I was also really shocked by was the Brontes sisters. Collectively, they would be favourite authors of all time, because I love Jane Eyre, I love Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Wuthering Heights is definitely at least a 4-star in my mind, as well as Agnes Grey. But unfortunately, individually, as Charlotte, Emily and Anne, they don't count. In the case of Emily and Anne, they just didn't write enough in terms of novels. And with Charlotte, I have only ever read Villette by her. I've not finished all of her work, and unfortunately Villette ranked a little bit lower. So the Brontes as a collective, yes, but individually, no. But William Shakespeare is a certified favourite author for me. I think I've read something like 14, 15 of his plays at this point, and all vary in terms of how much I like them, but there are definitely more than 3 that are 4 to 5 stars for me. Off the top of my head, I can think Much Ado About Nothing, King Lear, Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, so a tick for Shakespeare. Suzanne Collins, this might be a controversial one because I don't think that she can count, because even though I have read all of the Hunger Games trilogy and I have read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I did actually really like Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes, I don't know if this can count because I feel like it all counts as the same world. But I will read anything else that Suzanne Collins writes, at least in the world of Panem, so I don't know, you tell me. The next very easy yes is Jane Austen. I have read all 6 of her novels, as well as some of her juvenilia. I tend to go back and forth on the star ratings for Sense and Sensibility, Mansfield Park and Persuasion, but honestly I don't think that anything that Jane Austen wrote is below a 4-star in my mind. My favourites being Pride and Prejudice, Northanger Abbey and Emma. I also really love her History of England, I just think it's hysterical. So Jane Austen is an easy pick for a favourite author for me. Charles Dickens unfortunately doesn't make it on the list. You might be surprised to hear that I've only actually read 4 works by Charles Dickens at this point. A Christmas Carol, which is one of my favourite books of all time. Great Expectations, which I read about 6 years ago and just thought it was okay. David Copperfield, once again, pretty good book, but for me just a 4-star. And then Oliver Twist, which once again, a fine book. I understand its impact, but not a favourite. But he has a lot of work, so definitely has more chances with me. The next is Khaled Hosseini, of which I've read his 3 major works, A Thousand Splendid Suns, The Kite Runner and The Mountains Echoed. All of them were either a 4 or a 5 star. So in terms of my qualifications, that's a big tick, and I will definitely read any novel that he comes out with next. However, the fact is that he hasn't written anything in at least 10 years now. So I'm like, what's going on there, Khaled Hosseini? What gives? Next up we have L.M Montgomery. The qualifications here are really going to upset my friend Rachel because it's a yes to all of the Anne of Green Gables books that I've read, but I only gave The Blue Castle 3.5 stars. So as per my qualifications, that if it's all from the same series it doesn't count, unfortunately L.M Montgomery is not going to be a favourite author, at least not yet. I haven't yet read Emily of New Moon, so we'll see, all to play for. Another one that is a bit shocking is Hilary Mantel, because I've rated all of the Thomas Cromwell trilogy as 5 stars, but unfortunately that is all that I have read from Hilary Mantel, so unfortunately she can't count. Definitely give me recommendations of where you think I should go next, because I'm a little bit afraid to dip my toes into Hilary Mantel and the rest of her backlist just in case I don't like it, but I'm very up for recommendations. However, still in historical fiction, Alison Weir is definitely a big tick. I really enjoyed her 6 Tudor Queens series. Almost all of those books were 4 or more stars. I think the only one that wasn't was Anne of Cleves. I also really loved her non-fiction The Lady in the Tower. That was a favourite of the year that I read it, as well as her Tudor Roses series. I absolutely fell in love with Elizabeth of York and her historical fiction depiction of her. So Alison Weir makes it onto the list. Another author who makes it onto the list just by the skin of her teeth is Madeline Miller, because The Song of Achilles is one of my favourite books of all time. I gave Circe 5 stars, and I believe I gave Galatea a 4.5, which is just a little short story. So as I say, she gets in by the skin of her teeth, but I think it counts. And I'm going to be eagerly reading her Hades and Persephone retelling whenever it comes out. An author who does not unfortunately make it onto the list is George R.R. Martin. I have read the 5 main books in the Song of Ice and Fire series, but as I say, it's all from the same series. I have had no interest in picking up anything else that isn't in the Song of Ice and Fire Game of Thrones world. So unfortunately, despite how much time I have put into George R.R. Martin, he doesn't make it onto the list. Next up is Bernadine Evaristo, of whom I have read 4 works. Mr. Loverman, which is my favourite, that was an easy 5 star. Girl, Woman, Other, which is one that I definitely need to give a reread of, because unfortunately I read this just before lockdown, the first lockdown in 2020, so I feel like I was just in too bad of a mood for this to really like sink into my brain. The Emperor's Babe, which I thought was good, but for me was about a 3.5 star. Blonde Roots, which I actually don't remember at all. Yeah, I definitely feel like I need to have a revisit of Bernadine Evaristo. Just on the strength of Mr. Loverman, I feel like I need to give her another go, but unfortunately for right now, doesn't make it onto the list. Now we're moving on to romance authors. Tessa Dare, an easy yes. I've only read 4 books by her, but 3 of them were definitely 4 to 5 stars. I love When a Scot Ties the Knot, I love The Duchess Deal, as well as The Wallflower Wager. The Governess Game was a little bit lower, but once again, it was still Tessa Dare, so I think that was around about a 3 star for me. And I'm just very slowly going through Tessa Dare, because I just know that I like them, so there's no rush. Another easy yes was Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have read everything by Taylor Jenkins Reid aside from The Evidence of the Affair, which is a little short story. I can easily name 3 books or more that were 4 or 5 stars for me. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones and the Six, Carrie Soto is Back. I also really enjoyed Maybe in Another Life, and the rest of them are all at least a 3.5 star for me. And I'm kind of sad that we haven't had a Taylor Jenkins Reid book for a while, so I definitely think she counts as a favourite author. Maggie O'Farrell is a maybe for me. I definitely gave her memoir I Am and Hamnet 5 star. I actually can't remember what I gave The Marriage Portrait. I remember liking it at the time of reading, but it hasn't stuck around in my brain. I haven't read anything else by Maggie O'Farrell, but I feel like she is kind of a near miss author if she is not a favourite author. I'm definitely up for reading more of her. Emily Henry. I have read everything by Emily Henry at this point, but unfortunately she doesn't get to count, because the only books I've so far given 4 or more stars to are Book Lovers and You and Me on Vacation. Everything else by her that I've read has been like 3 star or lower. I recently read Funny Story and just didn't really get the hype of it, so unfortunately she doesn't count. But a romance author who does is Ali Hazelwood. I know that Ali Hazelwood is a little bit of a hit or miss Marmite author, but I generally really enjoy her work, particularly Love on the Brain, The Love Hypothesis and Love Theoretically. I wasn't as big a fan of Check and Mate. I currently haven't finished Bride, but Ali Hazelwood at this point is still an insta-buy author for me, and I'm looking forward to her next book. We can definitely plough through a few authors who only have 2 books that either they have published or I have read but really enjoyed. So a few near miss authors for me. Sophia Thakur has only published 2 poetry collections at this point, but I have loved both of them. Catherine Hanley, the same thing. I love her biography of Empress Matilda. I really enjoyed Two Houses, Two Kingdoms. I have my eye on her current non-fiction that has just come out, which is based around the year 1217. Kate Lister, another author who I absolutely love, but she only has written 2 books so far. Then getting back to authors I've read 3 or more works by, we have Elodie Harper, and this is another one where the series qualifier actually disqualifies her from making it onto the favourites list, because I love the Wolf of Den trilogy, but it's the only thing that I've currently read by her. She does have a new book coming out next year, which is all about Boudica's daughter, so I imagine as soon as I read that, that's going to tip the scales and push her up to being a favourite author, but for now, it's a no. Sophie Kinsella, I have read so many Sophie Kinsellas. The Shopaholic series, of course, but then all of the standalone books as well. Hallie Rubenhold, I have read 3 works of non-fiction by Hallie Rubenhold, of which The Scandalous Lady W is definitely a yes for 4 or 5 stars. The 5 I thought was good, but it wasn't my favourite thing in the world. I understand like the impact of that book, but I think for me it just isn't my time period, so I was a little less engaged. And no to The Covent Garden Ladies. So unfortunately, a no for Hallie Rubenhold. Emma Donoghue is a maybe. I really loved Room and Learn by Heart. The Wonder I remember liking but not loving, and then her short story collection Kissing the Witch I was just a little bit unenamoured with, and I haven't picked up anything else by her, so Emma Donoghue probably a maybe, but not a definite yes. Greg Jenner is a public historian of whom I have read almost all of his works, aside from his most recent, which is his children's book Totally Chaotic History, but an easy yes for me. I love Dead Famous, I loved Ask a Historian, I loved You Are History, so up you go, Greg Jenner, you are one of my favourite authors. Jessie Burton, another author who doesn't quite get up there. I really liked Medusa and The Confession. I did read The Miniaturist when it came out, but it's another book that I definitely need to do a reread of, because at the time I don't think it really did anything for me. I'm much more intrigued by it now, but Jessie Burton definitely has the potential to get up there for me. However, an author that I definitely can put up as a favourite author is Natalie Haynes. I loved The Children of Jocasta, I loved Stoneblind, I loved A Thousand Ships, I love Pandora's Jar. The only book that I have read by Natalie Haynes and didn't love is her Ancient Guide to Modern Life, but still saying that was like a 3-star, so Natalie Haynes gets up there. Sally Rooney, unfortunately, no. I liked Conversations with Friends, I liked Normal People, I wasn't really fussed on Beautiful World, Where Are You? So unfortunately she doesn't make it. Stephen Fry, I have loved all of his Greek myth retellings, but unfortunately they're all in the same series, so unless I read anything else by Stephen Fry, it doesn't count, I'm sorry. The same issue for Sarah Knight. I think I've read 4 of her books, but they all count under the same series, so unfortunately can't get her up there. Historian Dan Jones, however, is a yes, because I've read the 2 books in his Essex Dogs series, so The Essex Dogs and The Wolves of Winter. Really enjoyed those. I enjoyed reading Magna Carta and really loved Power and Thrones, so he gets to go on up there. Penultimate author here is Christina Lauren, of whom I've read 3 of their romance books. I really loved The Unhoneymooners and The True Love Experiment. However, Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating was like a 3.5 for me, so unfortunately doesn't quite get there, but I feel like they have potential. And then the last author on the list is Jennifer Saint. It's the same kind of situation. It's a yes for Electra, a maybe to Atalanta. I kind of hover between a 3.5 and a 4-star for Atalanta, but unfortunately a no to Ariadne. I didn't really enjoy that book, but Jennifer Saint's newest book Hera has just come out, so definitely has potential to move herself on up to favourite author status. So those were all of the authors that I could find that I've read a good amount of their work, and from that list we've narrowed it down to William Shakespeare, Jane Austen, Khaled Hosseini, Alison Weir, Madeline Miller, Tessa Dare, Taylor Jenkins Reid, Sophie Kinsella, Natalie Haynes and Dan Jones as favourite authors, all using those qualifying factors of having read 3 or more of their works, at least those 3 works being 4 to 5 stars, and at least one of those books has to be from a different series to have it count as a favourite author. Definitely not a perfect science. There are definitely some authors here that I kind of feel a little bit shocked and not on my list, but definitely a fun game to have done and to go through. Do let me know with these qualifying factors who your favourite authors would be, and if there are any works from the authors that I've mentioned that didn't quite make my list that you think I would really enjoy, books that might tip the scales for that particular author and make them one of my favourite authors. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.